All right, I'm gonna call the order. It was properly notified on the webs, it, sent out to the people, it was on the board and it was on the website. I need an approval to, for the amended agenda. There was just some typos in there, that's why I amended it. Okay.
I'll make a motion.
Motion by Julie,
Second.
second by Ashley. All those in favor? Say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Approval of the minutes of the May 22nd meeting. Any corrections or additions to that? Otherwise, I'd like a, motion to approve those minutes.
Make a motion to approve.
Yeah. Ashley made a motion, second by
I'll second it.
Julie. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Motion carried. Just a few introductions. I don't know if anybody, most people, this is Jen, and probably everybody's met Jen. He's our zoning sanitary technician. She does a lot with the addressing and that kind of stuff on the zoning end of it, so. And then this is Scott Kiley. He is our contact at MSA. Helps out with a lot of our issues. So. The next thing, item on the agenda is review, discuss the 24 grant amendments. I guess, I look at this kind of goes with all of them. Pretty much have the grants spent at this point, right, Julie?
Yeah, so the first one is we have about $460 left from the 2024 grant that needs to be used by the end of this year. We just paid 2 more MSA invoices, so that's wiped out, and the $1,000 is wiped out as well. The only thing that we will get back from the 2025 grant that we had to pay was the heirs. That's supposed to come back out of the NG 911 grant, so that will be coming back into our fund, but we just haven't got it yet.
And that was for the ortho photos.
Yep.
And those they're on the most, I still can't bring them up on the county website. We talked to Scott a little bit yesterday, so, but they're actually ready and ready to go.
Yep, they're ready to be adjusted, the road center lines adjusted, and that type of stuff to be reviewed. And then Scott and I talked yesterday that during our GIS technician meeting last week, that Sauk County had found some distortion of some trees and some buildings, real big distortions on buildings, and then some black lines. So we're gonna see if we can talk with Sauk County to get their spreadsheet of what things they found on their maps, so we can look for those on ours as well. So. And then you can see also the budget for 2025, 2027 there as to what we have for money that is to be spent in the next 3 years that we just put in our plan for.
It doesn't mean that it's just giving an estimate what it would cost if we did everything we wanted, it's in the plan.
Any questions?
So the 2024 grant, the end of the LiDAR is paid out of both 23 or 24 and 25, and then a little bit out of Fund 48. I remember that's what the council approved.
Yep.
And they're still finalizing the details on that. I think the 2025 grants, the money basically is mostly that'll be spent on the parcel mapping through MSA. That's what it's going to be. So any questions or concerns or issues or things you want to discuss on the 24 grant or the 25 grant? The 25 grant, we have until the end of 26 to spend that, so. And then the next thing, the big discussion, we need to think about items for the 26 grant. I went on the website, there's nothing available yet on what we can, what we'll have for either the strategic grant or the base budget grant. The base budget grant is basically takes $100,000 minus what is taken in through retained fees. So if there's 23,000 taken in retained fees, we get 77,000. If there's 13,000, we get 87. So we don't know what that's they haven't.
And we don't know if that will continue at that amount as
Yes.
well.
So
We don't know that until those grant numbers come out to us. So they could reduce those amounts. It's been talked that they are going to reduce those amounts, but we have not heard. I mean, that's been talked about the last 2 years.
we met a little with staff via online yesterday, so this didn't get a chance to get in the packet. I'll ask them to put it in there, but these are some of the things that for 2026 and beyond. All right, Scott?
These are some suggestions.
Suggestions, I mean, that he came up with, and including some of the things that we had. I know we've talked to our office, we'd like to be able to, there's some updates needed for the zoning layer, and we'd like to make that a public layer. Right now, it's not. And there would, people would still need to call us and find out but at least if they could say, oh, it's zoned ag forestry, or it's zoned ag residential, at least they'd have an idea what it's zoned as. The realtors would. And,
Do you have the list for potentials? I think you have
Yeah.
it down below you there.
oh, yes, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You're right. Yes. Oh, that's wrong remote. Sorry. There we go.
Yep.
And I'm doing this part of it.
Kathy, is that zoning layer that you're, is that gonna include sanitary district as well?
No, I don't know. That wouldn't be the sanitary districts. We don't have those.
I know we had talked about that.
Eventually, the sanitary districts, I don't know. I don't have that. But, you're talking like Sextonville and all that. Yeah, I don't have those.
But would we want to have them, do you think, or not necessarily?
We could, but it'd be a separate layer because
Yeah.
that's different than zoning.
Okay.
So that's a suggestion. I don't know who has those boundaries. You don't.
Hopefully the sanitary district.
No,
No.
Sextonville called us to get their sanitary district boundaries. But I said, well, why can't you just pull all your parcels and make a layer? I
They
mean,
know where the.
they know where your address points are and who you're billing, but they don't have a map, so.
So right now, there's sanitary districts are Boaz, Hub Rock, Cas Germantown, Sextonville. I think they're adding Ithaca to it or something, I don't remember. Those, and then Lone Rock is their own, because Richland Center does, but that's in city limits. Any other sanitary districts anybody can think of?
You said Hub Rock,
Oh,
Hub Rock?
yeah. Both of them, no, both of them has septic systems. That's something to look at, I don't, would be hurt to put that on there, be separate from the zoning. I think Jen and I kind of talked this morning about this software and handling for two things we want to use it for is the address points, but we'd also like to use it for marking in new septics. But until we get everything into Catalyst for the septic systems, most of them, my concern, like to attach, like the Catalyst, like you do it, you click on a parcel, you can go to get the tax information. Or you could do the same thing with sanitary and have, okay, this is the plan. We could do it, but we're not quite ready there on our end, so. We did talk yesterday about, I talked to Scott a little bit about the equipment that we would need to do it. And so I think maybe that's like down the road, like another year or so before we'll be ready. And I know, we can do it through NG 911, but then we're also using for septic, so that's really not an NG 911. I don't think we could really do that.
Could do the data gathering?
Purchase of the GPS.
Equipment.
Option.
Yeah,
Why? I mean, would that be used as to locate addresses or anything? on
no,
the
that's
platform?
that's what we're thinking, we could use it for locating addresses.
Oh, yeah.
And then we'd also use it for, if we had it, we might as well use it for doing the septics too, but that wouldn't be,
Oh, that's secondary.
okay. So I'm gonna maybe I'll have to work with John too, because we have to have I'll talk more with Scott. And we'll try and maybe look at NG 911, we'll find out more about that. At least at the start, we can use it for the address points. Because we've had a couple that are like almost right on top of each other, it'd be nice to have.
Better data.
The Platus survey,
So the Plata survey, I know that, the past years, we have just been putting points on the map for the Plata survey. And I'd like to see a layer for the Plata surveys now that are going forward so that when a deed comes in that uses a Plata survey, then it's available to be viewed and then mapped on top to make sure we're correct. So I'd like to see that added into their scope of work. Right now, they're just a set of points on the map.
CSMs are actually gonna do that.
CSMs are already a layer on the map, and then they're assigned numbers as they're plotted.
And that is in scope.
Yep.
That we said it's basically in item 3, it's just on the last thing, and kind of detailed in the second bullet. Kind of left it permanently back to say that we're just including plats of survey to determine exactly what that is. I'm pretty sure it's what clearly described, that it's checking them before they officially are approved, that they meet all the requirements, and then actually then keeping them as mapped
Points. Yep.
boundaries as opposed to just what they are now, which is just saying there's one right here
Yeah.
in this area.
Historical records, actually.
Yeah. We wouldn't be going backwards, it would just.
No, going forward. Yep.
So we'd have the plat of survey data would sort of have both points from the previous stuff and then the actual digitized outline for the new stuff. But what they represent is the same thing. So
and like I said, the zoning layer where there's corrections, we'd like to make that, like I said, public. Take off, we talked yesterday about taking off a couple of things that we see, which is, what they call it, it's researched, the Board of Adjustment, BOA, and CUP that mean nothing to the public. We would still have it internal, but the rest of it would be like even illegal and illegal non-conforming and legal non. Because those would be things that, as a real tree come up, you go, okay, then we were selling something, what does this mean? We could research what that would mean. But we get we get questions every day about what is this zoned as and. I don't know, the new ortho imagery, I think the center lines. I think that's all in, that's all. Do we need it for the 2026 grant, or is it already being done, Julia?
I'm sorry, what was that question?
The next one down, the new ortho imagery. Oh, good, yeah.
Sorry,
It's okay.
I had it on my schedule for this afternoon at 2.
It's 2:00.
Probably is. Sorry about that.
So we're going through, and Scott came up with things here, some prices and stuff,
So-
ideas.
We're working on that right now, but we thought that would drift into next year as well for 26, the ortho imagery, is where it's late in the year. So I don't know that we'll get everything adjusted this year. It may drift into next year as well, especially with some of the things that Sauk County found. They wanna
Good.
get that.
We don't know if they're gonna request a refly, or is it just data cleanup?
I would imagine it's just data cleanup. It's like better stitching, better analytics of,
So the base data is good, it's just how they presented it.
yeah, but we didn't go through the detail that Sauk County did. We did more of a spot check and strategically chosen places. And we verified essentially the quality of the photo and more importantly, the accuracy of it compared to previous years. So we kind of compared photo identifiable things that existed in both.
So there won't be the delay of need for a reflyer.
I
Sound like.
cannot imagine that, because like I said, we didn't find any of these issues, but once we heard that going through with a fine tooth comb discovered some of them, we realized we could probably do that too. So, we really can't say what the extent is, but I'm guessing it's not that drastic.
And Sauk had a lot of their things fixed.
Oh,
A
okay.
lot of their, but we wanted to see what the items were that they saw as going through, because I guess they had 8 people assigned to go through, so they did theirs edge to edge, yep.
The LiDAR, that's already been taken care of, so I think that's, you'll need that.
But I guess to close the loop on what Julie was saying, the data derived from the new aerial photos, like a more current center line data set and, adjustment to anything else, that would be the main one. That would obviously be delayed until we finalize that aerial photos law. And that's part of the delivery is two center lines? Or is that something that would have to be derived outside of the?
We'd have to ask heirs
Yeah.
and see what's in their contract.
Got it. But obviously, if you're talking about new center lines, then it does propagate to United.
Right.
So.
The last two on that list, watershed layer and hydrology layer. Steve Carroll from Natural Resources Committee would like to see that as a layer available to the public on ours. DNR has those layers, so that we meant to talk about that a little bit yesterday. It's not high priority for me as much as some other stuff should be, but you know, it's one of those things that, you know, when a committee member says they want you to do it, you know, you gotta follow and at least get an idea what the cost is gonna be to do it, and then we can finalize that. You know, put together what money's in the grant, well, how much money we're gonna actually get, and then figure out what we have to spend. I think our first priority is the maintenance of the parcel information that seems to take a lot of money, but there's other projects we could do too.
And that's very appeal effort. To
The
incorporate.
other two.
This isn't like even sanitary districts where we're sort of building data from derived information. This is boundaries that are mapped and made available through the same technology backbone that the county uses. So it's just a matter of, tracking it down, putting it in the necessary places where, your apartments and residents need to see it, and then, I guess advertising them there.
And I can see the watershed layer, I can see maybe John's office using that a little bit in case of a rainfall event.
Or, yeah, to be sure. Because I'll compare that against the firm maps. More likely than not, and then I have to determine fringe impacts potentially in 1,000-year event.
Okay.
So I would definitely use that. If it's just a matter of translating it from one database to another,
Yeah,
it
like
shouldn't be too difficult.
the firm maps are already in part of the normal GIS, the same concept.
Yeah, so
Those exist, managed by another, agency. So the watershed's just the same thing. It's just a matter of bringing.
yeah,
So,
that's not real expensive to be really helpful. Same
Um,
thing with hydraulics.
So then the next things were, that Scott kind of proposed with this sheet. You want to talk about the Esri fabric and the other things on that?
yes, so the first one on the list, and this is, again, they're all ideas, right? We're kind of finally getting back to some things that have lingered since some previous, staff transitions, and now we can kind of maybe get to a spot where it's more forward thinking, right? Not trying to continue finishing some of the things that started later or earlier. Anyways, and so the parcel fabric very much is one, but that being said, this county did look into it years ago. I thought it was around 10, maybe it's a little less, maybe 2018. It was pre-pandemic, so it feels like a lifetime ago, but, so essentially they looked at doing this project and then staff at the time deemed it probably wasn't worth the investment. But more as the technology has proliferated, more counties are going into it. And Julie can add to what the contemporaries are talking about, but essentially, it is a detailed way of using GIS to map and track parcel management, right? So it's not, I often use the term GIS as sort of a blank canvas by design. It does a lot of things to a lot of purposes. And so it's up to the users to define, and obviously one that maybe gets used is parcel mapping. Well, about 10 years ago, Esri decided, since it is so heavily used for parcel mapping, we're gonna take it a step further. And we're gonna build a whole framework, a set of tools and stuff to allow you to use this specifically to manage parcels, right? So you don't have to turn that blank canvas as much into something on your own. So anyways, technology, it's taken a while, and it's still a lot of people who think it has something to desire, but it might be worth looking into here. And that's why I didn't say it's a bit of an effort, which is why people still don't think the return on investment is there. So I said if the committee's interested, county's interested in, start with a small pilot, just to do one township, just to sort of see if we can gauge some benefits on a smaller effort. But overall, the idea, you can see that listed some of the benefits or the bullets, right? The idea is it's just basically more effective management in a nutshell. I hesitate to call it fully more efficient because you're definitely doing more in it, but the tools are there to hopefully offset that more. But you also can gain a better history, obviously better accuracy, going to maintain. These are sort of marketing points that the software puts forth. I'm kind of just regurgitating them, but again, a lot of it comes from other users. But maybe that's a good segue to what Julie had discussions at about this very subject with some other counties,
Yeah, so
proper listers.
you had 27 people here for the GIS meeting last week, and that was one of the items that was brought up was parcel fabric. How many counties had gone to parcel fabric and how many were happy with the efforts that went into it. So we had Trumbull County, Grant County, and one other county say they're definitely not going to that. Then we had Sauk County say that they went to it, they have been working in it, but the workflow that Esri had provided for them, they had to enhance that workflow. That it took longer than what Esri had said that it would take for that parcel fabric. And then some of the other ones were in, Vernon County was in transition, but then after hearing that, they're not 100% sure they're going either way. And then they did talk about the versions of Esri. When they got to 11.5, some of the things failed. We're not at 11.5 or 11.1 right now. We could go to 3. But everybody said stay away from 5. So, like that was like the stop. So that was, it was a big topic. It was probably an hour and 15-minute discussion between everybody that was in the room and input. And so, I mean, $7,000 a township, and if we start with 1, I guess we have to see what monies we have in order to address that when we get the new grant.
So does it hurt if this gets delayed another year or 2 so we can see what the bugs are? I hate being the frontline debugger.
Well, and that's,
Projects like
so
this.
like I said, this part of the platform has been existing for a while, so saying we're frontline would be a bit of a stretch, but
Okay.
obviously, Sauk County's been in it for probably, at least, I want to say they were early on, right? So you wouldn't be the total sacrificial lamb. But I guess the bigger point is, short answer is no, there's no, you've waited this long and, so.
Is this a market is this the direction the Esri market is going?
They're definitely trying to get it there, right? Like from a standpoint of, they think you're using their platform to manage parcels and you're not using Fabric, you're not utilizing their platform to its fullest. Now, and this is, like Julie said, there's the nuance of how different people manage their parcels, what's actually written in ordinance, what's actually just practiced by staff and what people are comfortable with varies so greatly that you just can't have this one thing. And because it's somewhat rigid to get there, you sort of have to shoehorn people into using it, and that adoption has made it hard.
So is this an easier transition for counties or agencies that have a multiple person staff to handle this, where we have a limited staff? And now we're forcing a new project?
And that's what's interesting, because when I thought we should re-engage this, my thinking was to basically have ways to foster the transition of parcel mapping from somebody who's not currently on staff, us, to somebody who is currently on staff. And since that probably is not likely, at least in the short term, maybe even longer term, to be somebody that's hired, it's probably gonna be somebody within staff, thus somebody who already has another job and has to now do something that is a little bit different than what they're used to, and then, might have to just adopt using a technology that's already sort of burdensome, right? And so the goal was to take some of that burden off. So from, like I said, the documentation, all these things saying that it's more efficient, more effective, my lawyers turn that into, okay, maybe it's easier. But we don't really know that until we're actually in it, without looking at what's the marketing pitch and what we talk to from other community counties, right? And so if one of those weighs out that it's worth it or not, then maybe it's worth it. And again, the test that I keep talking about, like we don't have that person. Julie's probably gonna be the person we would be doing that for. And so part of it is, if the method to foster that adoption of Julie parcel mapping without this is better than with it, then I'm all for doing it without it. But if
We won't know.
we
until
won't
try
know
it.
until we try it, so.
Got
Sorry, that was long.
$7,000 for a test case to see what happens.
Pretty much, yeah. And like I said, don't think of that as the cost per township, because, we strategically picked probably the simplest township
Okay.
to convert. That doesn't mean it's also the lowest cost necessarily, but that's part of the test too, is to really understand, you know,
That
what
is-
it means to not only use it when it's done, but to get it there.
Marshall Township really isn't a very good test case.
Oh, okay.
Because it's pretty straightforward. There's way more townships that have issues that it would be better to find out whether it's effective.
Yeah, and so that's a good point. I did think of it trying to like, should we actually get like a cross section? Like something that would maybe hit a lot of the check boxes of other things going, as opposed to the simplest. And that was part of it too, to keep the effort down here. I said, let's go with the simplest. But if that's not a good use of the dollars even then yeah, we could look into this at one that is maybe a better cross section for a better like pilot of things moving forward, that maybe then we could think of it more of a potential, like this is what we would expect times the rest of the townships.
So you're saying don't pick the easiest, but don't pick the hardest?
Yes, because I don't think that one's a very good case to compare to
Okay.
more of the issues.
Yeah, and this is, the other reason is, so the spatial adjustment was talked about, that's a currently active project. There's what, like 50% of the counties complete with that? That's one of the ones that have been lingering, finally getting back to finishing up. We don't want to do this until the spatial adjustment's complete. So if we're gonna do this sort of simultaneously, it would have to be with the townships where that spatial adjustment is complete, and that Marshall is one of them. I'm sure we could pick one of them that is more of a cross section. I just don't have the list memorized of what's complete.
I just don't think it's a very good use of the test money.
Sure.
If we decide to do that, unless it's something more challenging.
That's noted up.
Such as.
Is this test over a year or does it have like a time frame?
Yeah, I mean, so if the goal is to help further independence of your own parcel mapping, the time frame is whatever you're looking to try to get that part, right? And so I know that's a vague answer, is, you know, you can just think of it as like this, is if we were able to do this pilot and then do some testing and trial, you know, having Julie map without it, having Julie map with it to see where the comfort lies, and if we're gleaning those efficiency benefits and accuracy benefits and other things, then it would be, okay, now we gotta do the rest of it if it's deemed necessary. We do the rest of it and then continue that training essentially. Whereas now, we could technically, I mean, before we got here, we we're kind of going through some parcel mapping training, you know, without it, right? So
Yeah.
there's no waiting for that now.
So is there an education piece on this that we can get to the staff, to Julie, whoever, that says, hey, this is $7,000, but should we be including $500 for training or a class or a webinar or something that
There's
helps with that?
definitely training involved, like Azure provides training. It's not $500.
Well,
Yeah.
you know,
No, I know,
but I'm thinking if we're gonna do this, we should support that
yeah, that part.
more fully.
Sure.
And we do have $1,000 grant for that. That's also in the land information that we could use toward training.
And the trainings you have done through Esri, that, this is maybe part of the problem, is Esri isn't gonna do parcel mapping training outside of it.
They're not.
No, they're going to say that if you're parcel mapping, they're gonna assume you're in.
Oh,
in this method.
so they're really pushing it.
Some of the things could apply, right? Like some of the tools don't, I would say, I mean, what we're already using are similar to what you're using inside of it. But, so, I mean,
It's a big curve.
yes, it's a big curve and it's a reason why still as long as it's been around, there's very low adoption. So I by no means like am married to it. It was more or less, like I said, just something
This is a wish list, so,
potential next step.
yeah.
Well, and if like Sauk County's doing this, I mean, their income is way higher than what ours is.
Yeah.
They can afford to experiment with softwares and compare. We don't have the budget to do those things. We really need to just have tools that do the basics, and as the rest is fluff as far as our budget is
Yeah.
concerned.
So what is, I mean, does it seem daunting to you to?
Just the conversations that I've overheard and the definite, like, almost like a line in the sand that this half is doing, not even gonna consider parcel fabric, and then this half is into parcel fabric, and like you say, it's the bigger townships that, or the bigger, counties that have like 3 GIS techs, and then
Right.
their
Multiple
RPLs are
staff.
splitting parcels and.
If you're asking one person to do two people's work, I mean, that's not gonna work for us, and we can't afford to hire another person. I mean, we might be able to get some grant money to hire somebody temporary, but that doesn't help us in the long term, and we really have to look farther ahead to make sure that we can continue affording those services.
And I
So-
guess I'd like to see that. I'd like to see, I've been working with Vernon County. I'd like to see more about how the splits happen now without the parcel fabric. And so we're slated to meet again with Vernon County and to go over parcel splits and how they happen. So maybe if, we just keep this in the back of our hat, see, how the other part goes first.
Yeah, in a perfect world, it'd be great, but we are not in a perfect world. We're in a small county and our taxpayers are so burdened already that it would be hard to ask them to pay for experiments.
Yeah, I'll just reiterate that, this is full honesty that like, we want you to be able to, I'm sensitive to that and I want to help foster the ability to better use your tax dollars. And if that ultimately means not having MSA or somebody else do your parcel mapping, then we're here to do that. So I know that's part of why this is like it's cognitively different than what aligns with that, because now we're spending more money to test if it is, but really, that's what the idea was, to see if it truly is a way to create that adoption faster. But as you mentioned just now, we should really probably be focusing on really getting out, taking the current method all the way, which we maybe haven't done, right? We haven't
Makes sense to me.
taken-
Yeah. I like to see this pushed off.
Yeah.
At this point, okay, makes more sense.
Yeah.
Great idea, but not our time.
We happen to find a boatload of money somewhere, then it sounds like it would be a good thing to try, but
Then if we had a both of them, we could have 3 GIS technicians.
Oh, yeah.
it's hard to compare us to other counties because we're one of the smaller counties and we're one of the, not to be, nasty, but we're one of the poorer counties and, we have less industry and we're less retail, so our tax base is just really small.
On the backside, you wanna talk about what's on the backside?
Oh, and so this is just. So I guess number 2 was another just filler to kind of say, And this one was probably even more so going to be tabled for the same reason we just talked about. But it's just like sort of engaging with non-typical, or maybe not typical, county departments that haven't currently been truly engaged in the GIS talk, right? It's just to see if there's spots where GIS could help their business practices. And again, maybe that's too far forward thinking, because it's still, we sort of need to, button up the ones that are, right? So, but eventually that's like part of the idea, and maybe this is if this is another longer term way, I mean, it's hard to think of it, knowing what we just talked about, that the resources are limited, but, ideally, GIS can be used in so many different ways across county departments, right? And help in all the different business practices. And so it's just, if it's a way that helps you sort of engaging, that helps drive the need for the resources to be dedicated to it. It's just a added way to think of it, and so, but if you're not having that engagement, you don't know if there's, the resources be there, but it can be. So that's just maybe another whole thing, like, it's a long way of saying, if you had a person, dedicated staff to do GIS, you could be doing more across the county. And so I don't think I'm saying anything that you guys all don't already know. But that's just what that is.
And one thing with that is the city has received an innovation grant from the state, and they are starting to explore that a little bit, because their grant is joint GIS with city and county. So I know that they have been doing individual meetings with departments, and I presume we will get a copy of that report at the end. So we might already be getting
Got it.
some of that data.
Got it.
So they're meeting with county
Yes.
agencies too?
County and city, yeah, yeah. So the thought process is, can the city and county hire one GIS person to manage the city and the county's GIS?
Good vision.
So it's a study to figure out,
Is it-
what the needs are, first of all, and then to figure out what the time commitment would be, them versus us, and who would pay what percentage. So it's a study, and it's very similar to this. I mean, they're asking, they called me and had a meeting with me. I think they've talked to Ashley too, they didn't talk to you yet? Okay, well, I know that they're ongoing making appointments with people, but they're asking how everybody uses the GIS before they determine how much it would cost percentage wise for each of us, and how we could utilize funds if we could find the money for that, so.
And Julie and I will talk to him. And I think, John, did you talk to him?
Okay.
Sheriff talked with them, I talked with them, Josh talked with them. If you think you need to, I can tell them to.
It's just putting the whole basket together to see how it would work,
Yeah.
so.
Right.
Okay. Yeah, I guess knowing that, I think item number 2 is kind of mute at this point, but
Mhm.
on the same track.
Right. So luckily there was money available to do this study, so it isn't costing us anything
Better
at
yet.
this point. So yeah, that's the best part.
Perfect. So then the last 2 are just basically the standard maintenance, existing data, focusing on parcel mapping. We talked about, we're adding flats survey that Julie requested, and then kind of simplified it into one chunk for pretty much what's expected and what we have come to be our annual sort of amount of work. And then one for the rest, things that sort of come up as needed. That's what the work is. So. And this is outside of anything.
So is there a separate billing then for the E9 ones?
Yeah, we
Yeah.
gave a total different scope to John
Okay.
for that, in June. And when we talked yesterday, and this is maybe not needed for this meeting, but, they're still waiting to hear about those grants that they don't even know the state hasn't made them official yet.
For the G911?
Yeah, I mean, so you
Yeah,
might have more
so-
insight on that.
Yeah, so that's going to be restructured. The OEC, Office of Emergency Communications, will be meeting with WLIA, hopefully in September. The grant probably then will not come out until later in the year. The PSAP grant is already out and active. The GIS process is going to look at setting up 2 tracks. One track will be to get the counties that are not, do not have the data in, to get the data in. There's a number of steps in this, but one of the visions is track 1 will be a one-time shot for counties. Get your data ready, get it in, get it submitted. Track 2 then, as discussion is going on, will be how to maintain it from there forward. 1 is get it ready, get it set. 2 is how do you maintain it and keep it going. So that's in the discussion process right now to get the I3 standard done, get those qualifications up and running, get those standards up and running. So hopefully our next meeting is, we set an early meeting with the subcommittee in October. Hopefully to have those answers early October so we can get that finalized before the end of the year. So unfortunately, budgets are already set and budgets, people are doing budgets. It's going to be poor timing for that, but it's grant money all the same.
Are there other things that the department sitting here would like to see us looking into? Or, you know, because the grant is due, this grant's not out yet, the grant is due the end of the year. So if we can pull together numbers, then we can meet again in, say, October to kind of finalize what we want. You know, we can get quotes and stuff and then figure out, okay, what, and we'll know more what we're getting, so we can decide what we wanna do. So if you've got some ideas and some other things that, for improving our land information,
I have a suggestion. I think that we should require easements to be mapped on our parcel layer. And I think we should have an ordinance that requires that easements for access are surveyed, so they are locatable, so they are enforceable, and so that everybody knows where they are, adjoining landowners that are using them, the landowners that they're crossing, and people should be able to go to GIS and say, oh, there's where my road's supposed to be, here's where it is.
and we've gotten calls about that, I think all our department, you and Julie all have gotten calls about this.
It's a huge issue, and I'm sure Tina can weigh in here as well as her, you know, frustrations with people just saying, oh yeah, we'll just say it's over here, but we're gonna go over there.
And they can still do that, but it's, I mean, what I'm saying is,
Their
There-
legal access.
there's the legal access is here. And if they have this agreement between the two, then if somebody else takes over, no, this is your legal access.
And then one step further would be to require that people have a maintenance agreement for their easement so that we don't have issues with driveways that are, you know, nobody wants to take care of, so there's no responsibility there. And I don't know how far we want to go, but
And
I think that's important.
We've got a Wisconsin County Code Administrators, you can see if anybody has the ordinance or not, and what they would have it under, you know, if it would be added to the land division ordinance.
A lot of counties, it's not critical like it is here, but with all of our hills and all of the water that's being crossed, and I mean, we just have so many hurdles to, you know, have to jump over that they're just, people aren't prepared, and we're having so many people from out of the area buying parcels, and that's complicating it, you know. It's.
And, you know, we won't,
Crazy.
I think for right now, I mean, the other ordinance, I don't know who would enforce it and stuff. Which department it would go through for that part of it, but I think if nothing else, taking the recorded easements we have and getting them mapped would be,
Well, yeah, it's a twofold deal. One is the ordinance, you know, to require people to have it located, and the other one is to actually show the ones that we have out there on the maps.
So it'd be just like a driveway permit,
Right,
you know?
right. It'd be part of that process as far as I'm concerned. So when you do get a driveway permit, then you have to have a located
Yeah.
driveway.
and that depends on whether it's a state highway, federal highway, right? So the state would be.
Right, there's some variance there, but,
Oh, it's, yeah, like I said, that's,
you know, but our minimum frontage at the road is 66 feet. Well, you know, we go from there and actually add the location of where the driveway is going to be on the rest of the parcel.
so at least right now, mapping, work on the other part, but that would be mapping the recorded easements at this point. in time.
Yes, yes, that would be the first step. And the second would be to assure that driveways are maintained by somebody, that they're accessible for EMS, that, and all the services that people might need, and that everybody involved knows where they are and knows who's responsible for taking care of them.
I don't know where that ordinance would come through, but yeah, we could find that part out, but.
Sauk County does require that now. Any new easements, they get recorded, or there's a driveway agreement that gets recorded with the easement it's required.
With minimum standards.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So if you create an easement, an access easement, say on a certified survey map, there has to be a separate agreement that gets recorded at the same time as the certified survey map. And the two are referenced to one another.
yeah, so we'll just have to find out where, that part of it, we'll have to find out who that all goes through, like, who's the one who's the enforcer? As far as the ordinance goes. So, but that's a good one we've gotten a lot of questions lately,
It's gonna get worse.
I know. Any other ideas of things we should get costs on?
So Kathy, we've got Deb here and we've got Scott here. And as far as concerning surveyors specifically, the PLSS layer, we used to have all our document numbers linked up on there until we switched over to Fiddler and all that went away. And I know, Scott, you've had some conversations with Fiddler and Deb's had some conversations with Fiddler. And I don't think there's an easy way to link up those doc numbers for each of those tie sheets back to the PLSS website. So I guess we'd be looking for ideas on how we could make that happen again. Do we have to build like a manual database with all those doc numbers on there? And somehow link that up to the PLSS part of the webpage, or?
So we need the software connection between where the data lies and where it connects so that we can, because we can find time to input that information. That's not the problem. It's just making sure that this doesn't happen again. So wherever that data needs to be stored, so it's accessible. We have calls from surveyors all the time. I can't get this tie sheet to come up and I don't know how to do it. And then we have to walk them through it.
The
and-
tie sheets are still publicly
Yes.
accessible? Yeah.
Yes.
So it's a matter of that.
Just that link on that
Yeah.
specific one to go into the software where it comes up as a document number. So they can specifically search for the one.
And the breakage happened when we went with the Catalyst migration.
Right, after GCS,
Yeah.
worked with GCS, but it doesn't
Yeah.
work anymore.
Because what I remember now when we looked at it was they're named by like volume and page. And so we use the names in the actual PDF as the link. And since the volume and page is in the data, so is the document in most cases. But the volume and page is going to the actual file. What we need to do is make it so the document now can go to the file, and that's the problem. Because in Catalyst, they only have the document now, is that something like that? I need to look back at the history of the discussion. We either talked about what are the data entry, or the data management. It might either be effectively changing the names of the files themselves, or just populating the documents throughout actual.
Well, we need to figure out which
Yeah.
it is. And,
So,
you know, if we need to do data entry to add the
Yeah.
document number, that's, you know, we can do that. We just need that set up so that
Got
we can get it done.
okay,
And, you know, when you go to that, click that link, then it's supposed to take you into our software, our website for, you know, casual users.
yeah,
And then it should populate right in there, but it doesn't now. It takes you to that website because we just had a generic link put in all of them, but it doesn't give you that document number. So then you still have to go in and actually search for that. So you have to write down the volume and page. It brings you up to the software, and then you have to go into the software and put in the information. So.
but yeah, because they're actually stored. Okay.
Yeah, they're stored in our filler
We'll
data,
have to, yeah, so,
but they have to pay for these images. So that's where the data, you know, connection was chopped off. So now they can't get to that exact page.
So even if when you go in and click on a section corner icon in the PLSS site, even if when you clicked on that and brought up the dialog box, if it listed all those different document numbers for that tie sheet, that would be great. There wouldn't even necessarily have to be any kind of a link in the Deb site necessarily to purchase it. Because at least the person would have that document number to be able to enter in the Tapestry or Pareto, one or two.
And I don't remember what it says. Does it say volume and page where it shows that?
I don't think it does. I don't.
We know that's what it is, but the general public doesn't know what that is. So maybe we can restructure the way the dialogue box reads or something too.
Yeah, I thought it just, when you clicked on that, I didn't think you got anything. I don't.
You do now.
Oh, do you?
It takes you to Tapestry, Eon.
Yeah, but it's just,
It's the landing page for the software.
yeah, it doesn't give you any information, those for its volume and page or.
No, because that link wasn't working. So that was our solution short term, was just to take them to the website, and then they would have had to write down the volume and page and then put it in. So that's what we're telling them to do.
Yeah, I can imagine you get a lot of calls.
We are.
Any other ideas? So I think we come up with, you know, we get all these things we've got written down, get like a cost, and then once we find out what the grant is and kind of prioritize what we've got, at the next meeting, figure out what we're gonna put it in for, then I can write up you guys would approve it based on, and then I write up the grant and then take it to the Natural Resources Committee in probably November. And then take it to the November, December county board for approval to send in to the state. And if we put something, if, we can always amend it, we've amended the last 3 years of grants, because something came up or something changed, but at least we'd have that information down. So, yeah, somebody can give me the information that I can put together something to put in the next time. And
So MSA to give us a quote on the easement, mapping of the easements, and then
PLS,
MSA to look at the PLSS layer corners for the adjustment.
no,
Surveys.
and get us back the numbers.
That's happening monthly.
It is.
And it's
Um,
monthly update.
So,
so I just want to be clear though, the easement part, do you have a lot of easements mapped or just?
No, we have none mapped, basically, unless
But
they
so-
show on a CSM.
So is the goal to set forth the ordinance to require them to be mapped, or is the goal to just get whatever we can mapped?
I think we should get whatever we can
Okay.
mapped, and then we need to draft that ordinance so that going forward, they do have a description.
Okay,
But we have a lot of vague ones because people are running with a tight budget, so,
sure.
you know, they're going out, figuring out how many feet we can go this way, then we can go north this way, and how many feet, and so they're pretty vague.
So this would entail looking at CSMs and stuff where I'll say the typical spots where easements have been developed over the years and then trying to get them
Yes,
derived from those sources.
and we could run some reports
Yeah,
that we could pull up documents that have easements.
The
So-
recorded easements that you've got.
Right, so
Yeah, I think-
we could run some reports and narrow it down to the ones that we could find easily.
Sure. Yeah, so start with that. If we can get a number for those, that
Okay.
definitely help.
All right.
And we've had a lot of calls lately about those and people are angry and like, you don't deal with those, they have to be reported with the registered deed, so. So the next thing on the agenda is just where we're at on the grants, the grants, the two funds. Fund 23 is actually what we grant money, the strategic, the training, and the base budget grant, and the money that's spent out of there. And then Fund 48 is the retained fees fund. I emailed it to you. I didn't print it out. It was in your packet, sorry.
That's right.
I didn't think about printing these out. So Julie, do you wanna? I don't know if I can try and zoom in. I can zoom in.
Fund 23 currently has the heirs flyover on it because we needed to pay for it. That is supposed to come out of the NG 911 funds when they come in, so we paid for that. And I did just do two more MSA bills that, one for 17,000, one for 7,000. That just came out of that grant in the last couple days, so it's not updated exactly to where it is. And so in 2025 grant, we have around $99,000 that we're going to be using toward items that are going to come out of the 23 fund. And then our plan from 2025 to 2027 over a 3-year total is around $595,210 that we'll be using for the different items that were in the budgeted plan.
So Fund 23 and Fund 48 have to be spent according to what we have in our.
Land information plan.
Yep.
Right.
Just wanted to get out, I said it again.
So what's the real amounts? What's that supposed to be? Is that what we have spent?
So what your 20 and 23 budget, so $286,840 in the 23. And we have Fund 48 has 203,204.46 in it.
That's what's left?
That's
That's-
what we currently have in there.
Okay,
And note that these funds, we had issues between transitions with people leaving and people coming as to how much money was really in those funds. It wasn't kept track of, so, these are the amounts that we've kept track of, we've adjusted, we've spent out of,
okay, so the real amounts, the ones in parentheses, that's what's already been spent.
Correct.
Okay. But we don't know what we're supposed to be spending for each one of these. Do you have numbers for that, for each of these categories?
for each of the categories. So there's another spreadsheet that breaks out how those funds were spent, what we have left in the grant amounts. So, so that is our 3-year plan. So if you look at this, this is what we have left for the funds. We have $460.10 left out of the 24 grant amount. And then out of 2025, because we paid for heirs, we have $1,929.25. Heirs will come back to us through the NG 911 grant. So when you look at the total spreadsheet for Fund 23. And Fund 48, the amounts are in the lower right-hand corner as year-to-date.
But these are only for some July is what.
They won't include the two MSA
That you just
invoices
paid.
that I just paid.
So that 97,538, that's all coming back.
Eventually, well, no, not year-to-date, the 86,587.50
Oh,
from errors is
Okay.
supposed to come back because we applied for that through the NG 911 grant.
Okay.
And when will that come?
And I don't know exactly when we get our funds back from NG 911.
Yeah, has the work been shown completed and the bills set? Because they're usually pretty good about kicking those back out in 36 days.
Yeah, because John will submit our bills.
Yeah, as soon as they're submitted, they can show that it's been completed.
Okay.
Turn around.
Okay, so I'll ask him about that.
The reason I ask if you knew what part of the money was supposed to go towards these line items is because the gentleman that has done the book restoration in the past in our office, he had a list that he was working with Sue, and it's not completed yet, and he wanted to know if we had funds for that, and I don't know, so.
So we have paid in the past for scanning and we have paid in the past for book restoration.
Yes,
And we didn't include it because we didn't know there was anything more
Okay.
to be done. So if you want to give us a quote from him as to what you want done, we can have that taken care of.
And we would just have to take it out of the retained fees rather than, can't take it out of the grant because we have it listed under a grant.
okay,
But we can take it out of retained fees. Or we can add it to, if you have an estimate, we can do it for the 26 grant also.
So, yeah, if you want to provide us with that quote.
So one way or the other, we can pay it one, if we don't have enough, we can always switch it to, I think we can pay the retained fees for part of land, maintaining land records.
well, and there's some other things that I would like to scan. Our indexes have never been scanned, like our marriages, births, and, I mean, there's all kinds of stuff that hasn't been scanned.
But those would.
Right, not out of land records, I understand, but there are other ones
But
that
with
we
anything
could
to do with
do.
land records, information, deeds,
Yes.
that kind of stuff, then.
Yep.
We just need to know what they are and how much it would be to do it.
All right.
And the last thing more on that, the last thing. I'm gonna go. First.
Is there some place where you have a list of what composes the grant money? Is that available someplace?
That would be in the, what's in our 25, what's in our grant. I thought I sent it to you one time, but not, I can resend it to you.
Okay.
All right. That's what we're working on for 26,
Okay. All right.
I know I sent it one time, but it might have been before you started or whatever, it might have sent Sue with back the number.
Yeah, I don't think I ever got it, but I'll look and see if I have it. Okay.
So, to the Wisconsin counties code administrators, they've been talking about some counties have increased what the minimum acres for a CSM. And I've got this chart up here and it just lists, what other counties have done. This one, I did something and I forgot to put on this one, sorry. What other counties are doing, right near us, Stock County is at, less than 40, and they don't, 40s don't require. Iowa County is less than 40. Columbia is 80 acres, which is, to me, is ridiculous.
And Dodge is all.
Yeah,
Dodge is everything,
everything.
which is, I think, a little bit ridiculous. Um,
So there's also a graph that you can see that also looks at where we're at as far as the other counties. You can see how some of them are up to 80 acres. Dodge is all. You can see Eau Claire and Sheboygan are at 40 acres. You can see that there's a group at 20 acres, some at 15. So they're all over the place, and we put some pros and cons together. And what we're looking for is, we went to zoning, the Natural Resources Committee, and talked about taking up the certified survey maps from there, and it was suggested that we come to Land Information Council, talk about CSMs, talk about the acreage, talk about pros and cons, and then get a recommendation from the Land Information people to come back to the Natural Resources Committee to make a decision on what we want to see. At that land information, or that natural resources, Deb said that there were some surveyors, there were very few surveyors in the area. So I just went out and kind of got a list that would service Richland Center, and I put those down. They will come to Richland Center and serve Richland Center. And then we put in, why should we change the acres from 10 for a CSM to less than 35 acres? We put a few items in there: accurate acreages and boundaries defined by a CSM, clear documentation in case of boundary disputes, locating new buildings on the county, because we're having problems with people not getting permits, just going ahead and building, and then we don't know that their building exists. So then there's also cons on the back. That disadvantages is the cost to the landowner to split the acres and have it reviewed, because the cost right now of parcels selling is expensive. And then the time frame that a CSM takes to prepare makes it a longer wait time for the sale. So those are kind of some of the items that we had pros and cons. So I guess we want to hear from the rest of the group as to what their thoughts are, and have a discussion.
I did look, and I forgot to put that on this sheet. Did look yesterday, and Crawford's at 15. You know, if you have slightly less than 15 or less acres, you need a certified survey. So those are the surrounding counties are 2 or less than 40, Iowa and Sauk, and then Crawford's 15 or less.
What's Vernon?
They don't have it.
Well, Sauk and Iowa, you can't compare to Richland County, because first of all, their land prices are 3 times what ours are at least. And they have development for industry and commercial properties. They have vacation properties in Sauk. So, and they also have a huge tax base. Those two
Well, it's
we
not
should not
vacation properties.
compare.
We got a lot of vacation properties in Rivers County.
Well, I'm not talking about just somebody buying 40 acres to hunt on. I'm talking about people building $1 million homes and lakes and that kind of stuff. It's not the same thing as a rural property, so.
We're seeing maybe some issues is like those that are selling off their woods. And then
Down the house.
not the house where they're selling off. Yeah, they have like, say they have 35 acres, they're selling off their woods. And it may be 15 acres. And there's boundaries like this, and we're just,
Well,
They're-
plat
they're-
surveys, if they're gonna do a plat survey, it's still gonna show that boundary. That isn't gonna make any changes.
but we've had people complaining about some of those that come in.
So this is becoming a bigger issue than previously, correct? You've seen more issues with the
We've seen a few, yes.
Well, they can't subdivide a property like that without either a plat of survey or CSM anyway. So a CSM and a plat of survey are the same thing. The only difference is that the ordinance for the CSM is what we require locally. So a property like that isn't gonna change as far as the boundaries and things. And your transfer return tells you whether there's buildings or on the property or not. So I mean, that's neither here nor there. That's not gonna, requiring a larger acreage on a CSM isn't gonna change those factors. But what it will do is bring a lot of expense to people. And that's something that our area is, where money is tight.
I understand that, but I also understand that if it's gonna help our employees and the county be able to do their job more effectively with more the ability to do their job effectively, less issues with dealing with the public, I'm not sure if that would overweigh it. We do have a lot, yes, we are a poor community, however, we as a county also need to be able to do our jobs correctly and efficiently. If we're not able to do that,
It's not gonna help our employees any by requiring a certified survey where they would normally have to have a plat of survey anyways. It isn't gonna make that job
but you're speaking on behalf of them,
on behalf of.
on behalf of Kathy and the employees that do this, that have to work.
I work with the two.
I understand that, but like, they're the ones that are running into the issues about it.
I understand what you're saying, but what you're saying is not educated. There is nothing different between a plat of survey and a CSM.
That's not what I said.
So
you're
the other
saying
thing
it's
is
making
what we're
it
looking at is
It's not.
we're having an
That's-
influx of people coming in from out of the area. A lot of the parcels are being sold to Illinois people and those type of people that are coming in. And while the plat of survey comes in and can support a deed, the CSM is a clear representation of, that is filed, that is registered and is mapped. Of course, we're gonna do the mapping of the plat of surveys as well. But the certified survey will show us more of the evidence of what we need to go forward with making the parcels accurate.
I think from my office perspective, when I'm looking at a property owner coming in to request a new building permit, right now, yeah, the CSMs are the only thing that's mapped out there. So that's really the only time that I can say for sure if you're building on your property or not. I think that's part of where it came from. Having this conversation that we're gonna be mapping the plats will definitely help,
The plats are already mapped.
but mapped in a way that the zoning office can see it, because we don't have that layer. We don't see those anywhere. The only thing that we have to verify boundary parcels for sure are where there are CSMs mapped on them.
It's
So I
on
think
our
that's-
layers.
It's a point.
So the plat of surveys
It's a
are
point,
points
it's
right
not
now.
the actual boundaries.
Yeah.
So we have to take the point and then click on the point, and then we have to open up that map and compare it to what we've got, and we don't have aerials behind it, so it's hard for us to see.
So somebody has to, wants to build a garage or a shed on their property, and they have to be 40 feet from their rear property line. How can I verify where that property line is?
Well, that's on our tax parcel maps, and the aerials can be pulled into all of those layers.
Right, but the boundaries are not accurate on the aerials unless there's a mapped something, right? I mean, that's why this came up from the zoning office, is that's the challenge that we're seeing, is we can't verify where their property line is, so we don't know if they're building where they're supposed to be building, or if they're far enough from neighbors. We
Or
have
if
no
they're
way
even in their
to see that.
floodplain area
Right.
that you've had the last couple times.
So
So would this problem be eliminated if, we've been talking to Scott about having that plat of survey, those plats of survey all mapped in there. Would that necessarily take care of it then? Once we have a dedicated plat of survey layer with those boundaries in there? I understand what you're saying about the GIS mapping as it is right now leaves a lot to be desired, especially in certain places. I can understand
Very
where you're having a problem making decisions based on where those lines are. But now, if you look at Vernon County's GIS mapping, they have those, they don't have them all on there. They don't have all plats of survey, but they have most of them. And they actually have them shaded, so you can see that there's, okay, here's the plat of survey that was done and who did it, which surveyor did it. I'm just wondering if that would eliminate a lot of that, take a lot of that question out of there. We're still gonna have the problem of probably multiple lines on the GIS mapping, which personally drives me crazy, but. So we'd have a plat of survey line and we'd have a section line that's in there from wherever, and then there's probably another line in there from where the section line was in the previous mapping version or something, and somehow we gotta get that all down to one line, I think. But anyway, my point is that if these plats of surveys would map, would that take away some of the concern that everything has to be in C and sound?
How often are the plats done? I guess, that's
So once a
how
month
many
they
do
come
we
in
have?
to our office and they're filed and, we send them out to MSA to be plotted. And we have to also get a quote to see what the cost is. I mean, I guess we did have a quote, didn't we?
But these are dosages that ones going forward, it's not the older ones, that would be where, until we get.
And that would be my question is, if that's a potential solution, how long would it take to get all these plat of surveys mapped out? And in the meantime, how much extra challenges work would it be creating? I mean, is that like a 1-year process, 2-year, 5-year process?
I mean, we were just gonna go forward from this point, going forward to map the plats survey, not going backwards.
So if you don't map the plat of survey, how do you split the tax parcels then? Why is that any different than the tax parcel boundaries on the tax
I
map?
think Julie's saying she's mapping them out, they're just not getting added to the map.
They're just not layer on a
They're
layer.
just not on the layer.
There are points, but they're not a layer.
Well, on that one, there are the plat of survey map, but on your tax map, so are those not accurate, the lines that you show on the tax map?
I cannot say that the GIS map is ever going to be accurate. There are always going to be issues with the map. The map is never going to be perfect.
So how
It
do
is
you,
just the way that's what we were just talking about before we came here. I cannot say that those parcels are exactly right because there's always gonna be a error of accuracy to that map
all right.
at all
and
times.
I understand that with like meets and bounds, older ones and splits and fractions and things, but so how is it different from the CSMs, how they're put on that map now?
So CSMs right now are reviewed. They're reviewed, they're looked at, we have a cost to do a CSM, then they're put on the map. Plats of survey are an overview by Todd. He dedicates 8 hours a month to do his overview.
2 hours.
2 hours a month. He does his overview, they come in, the points are put on the map. They are not reviewed. And even with the CSMs being reviewed by an outside party, there are errors in the CSMs that I'm catching that are not caught during the review. And they're numerous. With the Plaza survey, we should just put them on the map. We should just go by them being gospel. There's a once over, but there's not a review of them. That is my sticking point with the Plaza survey. They're a Plaza survey. They're on the ground. They are 100% on the ground. But are they as accurate? A CSM is not even accurate, and we charge money for a CSM, but we should get the Plaza survey the exact same rate as what we give a CSM that we charge $300 for. I guess that's my hardest point is it my job to be the real property lister to do all the Plaza survey to make sure they close within a rate, to make sure that all of their stuff on there is correct, and then I should take them as gospel to what I'm working with as a deed versus a CSM. I think that's my biggest struggle is I have a CSM that's reviewed, $300 is spent for that CSM to be reviewed, that is mapped. We make parcels because that's what we do with the CSM. We make a parcel number for that CSM, but the Plata survey comes in and I talked to other counties, because that was one of the things I wanted to discuss with all the other counties. Who changes acres? Who reviews the Plaza survey? Who puts them on the map? And it's just like this. It's half the counties put them on the map, half the counties do the acreage. Half the counties don't even review them, don't have anything to do with them unless a deed comes along. But they don't even go and look to see if that Plaza survey fits with that deed. They just say that's a Plaza survey. So where is it? And we've discussed this Plaza survey forever. We have beat it to death. When do we come to like a CSM being the thing that we are going to review and take as a hard document versus a Plata survey that any surveyor can put in the system? And some are good surveyors and some are, and we all know that. We all have issues with both sides. So where do we come to what we want to see? Do we want to see, we all want to see an accurate map. I want to see an accurate map. My life would be great if I could have an accurate map, you know, with everything where it's supposed to be. And I guess that's what's driving me with the CSMs. I know that it's costing, and I know that there's time frame, and I know that we're not a rich community. But at one point, do we set that aside and say, what is best for the people that have to work in this building and deal with the public every day? I mean, what is the best?
What's the cost differential between the two?
A Plata survey is generally a simpler survey because we don't have to locate utilities, we don't have to locate buildings, we don't have to locate driveways, we don't have to locate wells, we don't have to locate septics, we don't have to locate water courses necessarily. It's just basically, here's the boundary of this parcel. And to be clear, to address Julie's point here regarding accuracy, both the Plaza survey and CSMs have to meet the same accuracy standards under state statute. They're exactly the same. Now, I understand that there's typographical errors, or there could be omissions in either one. Either one can have problems, which obviously Julie's finding. So there's different.
We're all human. We're all human.
Right.
I am as well, you know.
So it comes down to, and Julie's making the point here, well, how far do we go with this? Do we require every survey that's done in Richland County to be reviewed through some sort of review process? That's obviously going to take time and money. Where do we draw the line? And just to give everybody an idea here right now, if somebody calls my office and wants to have a survey done, whether it's a Plata survey or a CSM, we're 3 months out right now. So that list there of all these surveyors that was up there, well, some of them aren't even in business anymore. Sean is retired. Woodland Consultants has been out of business for quite a while. You're getting some surveyors coming in from out of the area, but it's just hard to find surveyors right now, to be honest with you. Even though there are all these firms, I think they're all out there with quite a significant backlog. When it comes down to, like Tina being a realtor here, somebody wants to close on a property and they're going to need a CSM, and the first thing that's going to happen is the surveyor is going to say, well, we're 2 to 3 months out. And then there's the review process too yet. So all this stuff, I'm just making the point that all this stuff affects what's happening here. So my own personal thought, as long as I have the floor, is certified survey maps. I would like to see a certified survey map required whenever a rezoning is required. So if somebody is going to split off, let's say they have 100 acres, they decide they want to split off even 35, well, rezoning is going to be required for that. They're going to have to rezone from ag forestry to ag residential. They can tie that in with the land division ordinance or the zoning ordinance. Okay, if you're gonna have to have a rezoning, now you're gonna have a certified survey.
We're gonna have several that'll have to have it because we have ones that are not zoned correctly.
they're in the wrong zoning district, so all those would have to, before we could rezone it. We have 0.5 acre parcels that are zoned ag forestry. We're not charging them extra to do that, we're not charging, but then those would be required to have a CSM.
Well, what
They're
Todd's-
required now to have the CS.
Yes, they are. He's talking about going forward with splits.
Anything new, like if somebody wants to create a new lot or a new parcel and they have, let's say, 100 acres out in the country and they want to sell off 30 or even 35, that's going to trigger rezoning. So now my thought was to dovetail the rezoning and the CSM requirement together.
So you're suggesting, I don't have it up here, I got it in mind, maybe we could talk, well, we would put in the ordinance to set aside minimum acres, would say, anytime parcels being rezoned, they would be required to have a CSM.
Right. And people are already, rezoning process is already a $500 fee for the rezoning. So they're already laying out money to get a parcel rezoned. Now you're gonna have to add on top of that the CSM review fee plus the CSM cost of the surveyor doing the CSM. So you have to pay to play, so to speak, I guess is where I'm looking at it from. Now, if you try to require, and we've had this discussion before, if you try to get these farmers out there to, let's say they want to sell a 40 off, and now you're gonna require a CSM on that, you're gonna get a lot of pushback from,
Well, that's what I guess what we need to know is what to put in, what this group is wanting us to put into if you change the land division ordinance, what we want to put in there for the certified surveys.
Because right now it's less than 10 acres.
And 10 acres or
10 acres or less.
and even, just to be clear, even existing parcels that are 10 acres or less, if somebody wants a survey on them, they're required to have a certified survey map. If it's less than 10 acres, even though it may have existed for 50 years, they have to have a certified survey map in order to get their survey done. And then generally, I shouldn't say generally, but sometimes we discover that the zoning, the underlying zoning of that parcel is grandfathered, but it's incorrect. In order for the county to be able to approve the CSM, the zoning has to be brought up to current standard. So very often there's a zoning that has to happen even with an existing parcel when a CSM is being done.
So is your proposal that anytime that there's a zoning change, that there is a CSM and we don't go off of an acres, or do we also keep our current ordinance of the 10 acres or less?
Well, I don't necessarily have a problem with that, with the 10 acres. Personally, I don't have a problem with the 10 acres or less. It's been that way for I don't know how long, longer than I've been county surveyor. And when people call and want to get one of these little parcels surveyed that's existing, my first thought is, well, is the zoning correct? So that's the first thing to check. And then the next thing is, well, you're going to have a certified survey map. And if the zoning is not correct, now you're going to have to go through these. But Julie's trying to get into increase that acreage. Well, I think having a rezoning in that requirement in there, or CSM requirement hooked in rezoning, that's going to catch a lot of them. Because now anything basically less than 34.99 acres is going to require rezoning. So anything, if somebody has 100 acres out in the country, that's already, there should be zoned ag forestry now.
And that would kind of go back to some of our concerns with some of these acreage that are, yeah. So we can come up with some wording that way, if that's okay with this group. You and I can work on the language maybe a little bit.
I'm just thinking that's one way of catching this, still achieving at least part of what Julie's talking.
It's zoning and it's just not talking, but.
And that would still allow, I mean, I don't think we're gonna have I mean, we're gonna have a lot of pushback if we try to go bigger than that. Let's put it
Right,
that
no,
way.
no, we did not wanna, we were looking at,
And it's,
a lot less than that. I mean, we
and
definitely wanted less than, if you look at zoning districts, ag residential or less is what we're looking, ag forestry, leave that alone, but.
it's just, I think it'll be a less painful pill to swallow for people since they're already gonna have to rezone. So there's already money gonna have to, they're already only gonna have to spend money with that. Now, another 350 or whatever on top of that for doing the CSM application and review. Because of course, they're already gonna be shocked by the amount the surveyor's gonna charge them, so.
Yeah. Okay,
But then if,
we could put together the three of us could put together some language and talk about it, if that's okay with the group. Doing it based on a rezoning request of,
It's a better direction. Yeah.
and then we'd still leave there's been times I've wanted the 10 acre thing to go away too. But I understand now that even though that may be a little bit painful for people at times, especially with those existing parcels having been out there for so long. We're catching some of these parcels that are hanging out there that haven't had proper zoning forever. So I think that does serve a purpose, that it does get some of these non-conforming parcels brought into the modern age, so to speak. But Julie, I understand your point there that, yes, there's a big difference between the quality of work between surveyors. That's one thing. And then we're all humans, so we're all fighting typos.
And I am too. So I'm not perfect.
And either way, I guess, whether it's a plat of survey that comes in the door and there's a mistake on it, and then that mistake gets perpetuated into the deed that gets recorded, there's gonna need to be an affidavit of correction against that deed at some point to get that taken care of. But the same thing happens with a CSM. If there's a mistake on a CSM, there still has to be an affidavit of correction done against the CSM to get that corrected. Big difference, I guess, for surveyors is that if I make a mistake on a CSM and it needs an affidavit of correction, I can actually do that and have it recorded. If it's a deed that an attorney has drawn up, I can't correct that. The attorney or whoever drafted the deed has to do that. So then I have to pay for that.
okay. All right. So that's all, if that's okay, that's what we'll look at doing, adjusting the land division ordinance. We'll come up with the language for that, proposed language for that. All right. So next meeting, I think that depends on when we find out, if people can get what the costs are, so like me, and then you can list the prices, the costs out, and then give that, then hopefully by sometime in October, we'll find out what our grant amount will be, and then we can decide how we want to spend it. Again, a big portion will be on the parcel maintenance, but then we can go from there. So there's nothing else. Like, need a motion to adjourn?
Motion to.
I have
Sorry.
second by, right? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.